critical rhetoric is open to any possible artifact that might be out there, whether text-based or not.
What are some of the things you think that people could pick up from this special section that help us build for the future?
What people will hopefully see is their permission, quote unquote, to take it in their own way, to move it in their own direction. If we can talk about forgiveness, if we can talk about education and pedagogy from a critical perspective, or if we can talk about television and the president as a reality TV personality, then I can do something else with it as well.
You spend a great deal of time in the introductory essay talking about Foucault. How does Foucault work into all of this?
Well, for me at least, the principle from Foucault is that power is pervasive and not a possession. It's part of the relationship, so that if you talk about a couple, they're in a particular relationship, power is embedded in that relationship, and secondly, power is not permanent. It moves, it shifts over time.
So this, I mean, it really does circle me back to, all the conversations we've had about the relationship of the critique of domination to the relationship to the critique of freedom.
They bleed into each other. Sometimes the freedom to become is constrained by a dominant force. Hence, the critique of domination comes into play. Sometimes the critique of freedom is simply, what can I become? How can I remake myself?
To do, because it does complicate our notion of freedom, right?
Yes.
That we tend to think universally, freedom's a good thing. Well, if I'm just constantly exercising my freedom, I am trafficking into domination, aren't I?
Yes, because freedom is not freedom alone. It always is paired with responsibility.
I found myself writing recently about communication as action and thinking of it as active. And one of the examples I used was political correctness. In that political correctness is not something you do for you, it's something you do as part of this responsibility, right? It's a way of reaching out and being actively inclusive in the conversation rather than alienating.
I don't like the phrase political correctness. If we were doing it right, we would simply talk about dignity, giving other people human dignity and respecting their difference in terms of respecting the dignity that they bring as humans to a particular situation. Because political correctness, while it cuts positively, it also cuts negatively or permits others to say, well, that's not the right way to do things because you're just being politically correct.
I think this is a great moment for talking about domination and freedom, right? Because
yes.
The creation of political correctness as a way of referring to this was out of trying to create more spaces for
yes.
freedom and address domination.
Yes.
And so what you're saying is your critique of political correctness is coming from how it has been co-opted by domination?
Yes, basically, because it's been co-opted as a way of saying we don't need to be politically correct. And political correctness becomes a way of just dismissing an idea because it's been labeled in a particular way, and the label to them is anathemic, and hence whatever the label is representing is also not worth bothering with.
Particular, given where we're at in discursive history, there is a moment for the white male to be engaged in the critique of freedom in very meaningful ways.
Yeah.
And understanding that one of the subjectivities we can extend to the conversation is a critique of our own space and an ability to operate within it.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm more and more aware of as I age. I'm thinking of things now that I would not have thought of 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and being able to recognize the limitations that my own privilege places on social others as well as the systemic nature of my buy-in, if you will, to that sense of privilege and what it does. We're works in progress, and it's not somebody else's responsibility to make sure that that progress goes forward.